It is my great pleasure now to welcome Senator Chris Van Hollen to our stage. He's from my home state, Maryland, and I can tell you, I have followed his career. Senator Van Hollen has a distinguished career in public service, serving in the Maryland State Legislature from 1991 to 2003, then moving to the House of Representatives, and now in the Senate since 2017. And as a Marylander from Montgomery County, I have followed him for a very long time and have always been impressed by his practical ability and dedication to really doing things that make the people's lives better that he serves. He's incredible, has an incredible ethos of service. We have really appreciated his support for creating an economy that works for everyone. He's a tireless advocate for better jobs, for small business resilience, and for employee ownership. We ask him to show up for our employee ownership events, and he always does. He showed up when we were kicking off our series on employee ownership. He came last year, and we were so grateful for that. And we were so grateful to welcome you back this year. Thank you so much for all you do, Senator Van Hollen.
Well, thank you so much, and it goes to show you should always have one of your favorite constituents introduce you. So thank you so much for your leadership, and it's wonderful to be back with all of you, and it's great to see a room full of people who are very focused on trying to take some practical steps to make sure that we can build an economy that works for every American. I want to thank many of the organizations that we've worked with over the years as we try to get this legislation over the finish line. Jack Moriarty, I don't know if Jack is here, with Ownership America, and to the entire team there. To Rutgers Institute for the Study of Employee Ownership and Profit Sharing, thank you, and the Aspen Institute for Economic Opportunities Program. Also saw Jim Bonham with the ESOP Association. But to all of you who've been part of this effort, thank you. And I don't know who else you've heard from the Senate or the House, but I do want to thank my colleagues in the House who have been working with us on this legislation, and also want to take this opportunity just to thank my partner, friend, and colleague from Maryland, Senator Cardin, who, of course, was chair of the Small Business Committee for a very long time, and really worked to try to create more incentives for employee ownership. And we want to pick up that baton and build upon it. And Senator Shaheen, of course, who's the current chair of the Small Business Committee, has also been very committed to these issues, and I've been in regular communication with her about the legislation that we've been working on. Look, I'm preaching to the choir in terms of the benefits of employee ownership, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time reminding everybody of the benefits, but I do think that we collectively need to do more to communicate the benefits to small business owners, other business owners who may not be in this room, as well as to their employees, because I do think lack of education and awareness has been an impediment, along with some of the other impediments that I'm going to mention that we're hoping to address directly through legislation. But I mean, it's clear that when everybody has a stake, all the employees and workers have a stake in the outcome of an enterprise, that they will be more dedicated to the effort and will benefit more from the overall effort. And that does mean that when a business hits the skids potentially and has some tough times, everybody sort of comes together, recognizes everybody needs to make sacrifices. But when a business or an enterprise is doing well, everybody benefits collectively, and workers obviously not just in the form of a paycheck, but in terms of growing their wealth as the wealth of the enterprise grows. And that, of course, is the fundamental idea here of trying to expand employee ownership, to try to make sure that workers get the fruits of their labor, not just in terms of that weekly paycheck, but the value that's built up over a period of time. So despite all these benefits, the reason we're here is because we want to expand the circle. I mean, for example, in Maryland, only a very small portion of Maryland companies are employee-owned. The most recent data that I've looked at from this year shows Maryland is home to 99 ESOPs and just over 27,000 plan participants. This is out of a state of almost 8 million people, lots of small businesses, middle-sized businesses, and other businesses. So clearly we have a lot of work to do to address these issues and make sure that we can accomplish our goals. And if you look collectively at small businesses in the country, we are facing, as all of you know, and you probably talked about it, the silver tsunami, where so many of these business owners are near retirement age. And so the question is whether they're going to have an opportunity and mechanisms to pass those businesses on to their employees, or whether some outside entity will swoop in and purchase that particular business. I mean, it could be a private equity fund. It could be a company that's overseas that's hunting for, successful small businesses in the United States. And I think we understand that we're all better off if those employees can take over the ownership of the company, and not just for themselves and not just for sustaining those businesses, but for the communities that they live in, because they are attached to communities. They're part of, the local athletic leagues. They're part of, the PTAs. They have a stake in a community, whereas some, fund from outside does not have that same attachment to making sure that the community will benefit as those small businesses are transition from one owner to another. And so that was the entire idea and purpose behind the Employee Equity Investment Act. It's a bipartisan bill. My co-sponsor, chief co-sponsor, Senator Rubio, and in the House, it's also bipartisan. And it's not just the two of us. There are other Republicans and Democrats who have co-sponsored this legislation. And the goal is to overcome some of those hurdles that I mentioned by providing loan guarantees to investment funds that are devoted to expanding employee ownership. And those investment funds would finance and facilitate the process of selling a company to its employees, and also sustain and expand existing employee-owned firms at no additional cost to the taxpayer, the way it's structured. So if a business goes up for sale, these funds could pitch the employee ownership as an option for businesses that may not have heard of the concept. So it gives these entities a stake in trying to address that education issue. As you all know, employee stock ownership plans and worker-owned cooperatives can be complicated. And these funds would also bring with them some of the expertise that can help navigate these transactions. And I want to thank the Department of Labor. We've worked with them to try to better streamline some of those processes even now, but we all know we've got a lot of work to do. And of course, they would bring capital, which is a huge barrier, probably the biggest upfront barrier to employee ownership. Currently, it is the selling owner who self-finances existing employee ownership transactions, meaning that the owner has to wait 5, 10 years, maybe longer, to receive full payment. And so if you've got an option, as a retiring owner, to take, a lump sum all at once, obviously that's easier, even if you're an owner that wants to pass on the business to your employees. So we want to make this easier. And I also want to make sure, and everyone here understands, that we would adopt a set of very strict rules that we collaboratively have developed with you and others, stakeholders and employee organizations, to make sure that workers come first. We do want to make sure that there are very clear standards in place so that when we have one of these transactions, the best interests of the workers do come first. So this is an exciting bipartisan initiative. We are exploring different routes to legislative success as we speak. The route we've got it structured in the bill right now goes through the Small Business Administration. There may be other federal agencies where this might ultimately find its home. We're exploring those ideas really as we speak. But the goal remains the same regardless of what federal agency it would travel through. And the goal is to make sure that, more American workers, employees can benefit from their productivity and labor. And, we all say, at least many of us say, I think everyone in this room says, we want to build an economy that works for everyone. We know it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. And this is a path to doing it. It doesn't get us, as fast, where we want as fast as we may want to go, but we need to start here. And by creating the incentives and aligning the incentives with employee ownership, I think we can take some very important steps to accomplishing those goals. So again, thank all of you who are part of this movement. We want to work very hard with you and partner with you to get it done. The good news, as I said, and is bipartisan, and that will, I think, help us along the way. So I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, and most of all, appreciate all that you're doing. So thank you.